March 9th, 2022. I'd like to call this Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting to order. So approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, there are no declarations of pecuniary interest this evening. On to receipt of the minutes. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of February 9th, 2022?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Haley.
Thanks, Haley. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And we have no delegations this evening, which brings us to our matters for consideration. So beginning with 6.1, Memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding pre-application consultation, PRE 2022-01 for 375 Addison Hall. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne. Okay, Matt, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we can get started. So this is actually going to be a pre-application that we're looking at. So this isn't an official site plan that we have ahead of us, but I figured it was a good opportunity to kind of get a couple of comments in for you guys prior to it becoming a full submission. So you guys can see on the application form over here, it's a proposed piece for, they're permitting for parking space, and they do have an additional, we'll see on the site plan map. It doesn't say in the notes here, but it does have an attached new proposed building coming in there. So we will go through the interior as well, so we can go through all of that right now. So taking a look at this existing parking lot, I'm just going to zoom in quickly and kind of give you guys a little bit of guidance. Just move your faces over quickly. So coming off Addison Hall Circle, you can see that we have a couple of barrier-free parking spots located over here. We have 5. So right where you see this blue box towards the middle is the one main entrance that leads into the existing building. And then when we take a look at the interior drawings, you will see that there are entrance points into this new proposed 1-story banquet hall. Now, there are exits out of the building that's being proposed, but no entrances. So the main entry is still going to be the main focus. So there's no barrier-free parking that I think is useful to kind of position close to the proposed story. We're going to kind of focus here on the main entry. So they do have 2 proposed spots, a type A and a type B, directly in front of the main entrance. And then over here on the side, close to additional exits and the entry, they have an additional 3. So in terms of the proposed parking spots, they do have enough barrier-free parking. But in my comments, you guys will see that I was actually asking for them to relocate the barrier-free parking to just be closer to the main entry. So especially these ones on the side over here where you can see with my mouse highlighting on the left side of the building, they're closely positioned to the exit where my mouse is hovering over right next to those shrubs. And so it's better for them to probably bring it down a little bit closer over here with the curb depression in order for them to have access directly over to the main entrance. And then from there, I think it would be equal regardless of whether it's directly in front of the building or to the side of the building. I think those are pretty even distances. And so the only comment I had for the outside over here was for them to relocate the barrier-free parking just to ensure that we do have them on the shortest route in order to enter into the building. The next couple of slides lead inside. Do you guys have any questions on the exterior?
No.
Most of this is built, so like there isn't going to be too much for us to really comment on this, but if you guys have any comments before I jump over. Okay, sounds like we're good. Alrighty, let me just zoom out a little bit here. Okay, So looking at the bottom of the page where my mouse is hovering over that main entrance, that's exactly where we were just talking about with the barrier-free parking leading into it. And so I'll just zoom in now to lead you guys through each of the banquet halls. So into the front lobby, you can see this is the building that currently exists. So we wouldn't really have any comments to have on this area. They have an open area that's being proposed. No accessibility or barrier-free issues over here. Going into Banquet Hall 1, you will notice that they do have an elevator that leads up to the proposed second floor, which we will see on the next page. And they do have a proposed universal washroom being installed. And you can see, I'll talk about option 2 here in a second, but you can see right next to the universal washroom, they have a proposed men's and women's washroom with allocated barrier-free stalls in both of those washrooms. So on the main level, look like they have 3 serviceable washrooms available to be used. On the lower part of the sketch, you'll see they have an alternative design, it looks like, for the women's washroom. I didn't have any comments on it because to me, they still are providing the one stall available. It looks pretty identical in terms of turning radius and space coming into the washroom. So I didn't have any comments on that, but I wanted to highlight it for you guys just to see whether or not you think option 2 might be the better one. But I'm pretty indifferent on it. I think they both serve the same purpose. And then past that, you'll see the rest is pretty much just open space with exit doors kind of leading out the sides of the building, very similar to your traditional banquet halls. So nothing surprising there. I'm going to jump over to the next page, but I just want to ask you guys prior to doing that, any opinions or opposition to not having option 2 or just sticking to option 1? I don't know if you guys have any comments on that. I think you'll probably be pretty indifferent on it.
Matt, just
Yep.
looking at option 2, I don't know, is it just like an optical illusion? But like, it looks to me like a narrower space between where the sort of the accessible washroom door is as you back up to where the sinks are. It looks like a narrower sort of aisleway there than in option 1 between the doors of the stalls. I don't know, is that true? Or?
Well, we would know when they actually go to like the real site plan application, they give us measurements and we can see it wholesomely. Okay. I think it is an optical illusion because like, as you can see with these 2 stacked up side by side, it looks like they have some additional space over here on the side, which is now removed and brought over here to the top. So it looks like they just kind of shifted around where some of these items are placed. So my assumption, just looking at this without having measurements, is it's exactly the same, just because you can see like the square footage overall looks pretty identical. So I'm making the assumption that it is the same, but we will see once we get detailed drawings for sure. And in that case, they'll have chosen one of these 2 options, and then you'll have the measurements for that specific option. I don't know that they'll give you this option 1, option 2 once we get to the site plan application portion of this.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I also noticed that in the men's washroom, the accessible washroom looks to be bigger. And is that a sink in there in the men's one?
So let's zoom in here. So it does have the sink in there for the men's washroom, and the women's stalls do not. They have just the sinks on the outside. So yes, you are correct that there is a sink located for the men's stall, because it looks like they kind of pushed it out to the side over here. And then it looks like generally the female's washroom is larger, but then the accessible stall loses the sink and would be using the sinks on the outside.
And the accessible female washroom is smaller as well, it looks to be.
Yes, it is smaller because they're using the service room gap over here to make that a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I noticed that. I thought it was odd, but
yeah.
May I add something about it too?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jordan.
The number 2, to to me, I don't know, it would maybe prove a bit more difficult. From the point of view of you coming out of the washroom door, we're going to have solid things in the center. Where in the first one, if at least they run into trouble or something, they can turn to the other door and not sort of push it open if they were having difficulty turning around with a wheelchair or something. I was just thinking that might be a better option than having a solid thing in the center.
Okay, so you're saying that you prefer the option one they currently have in place with less barrier coming out of the stalls.
I think that would be my preference.
Yeah.
For people that have difficulty.
Yeah.
I agree. I think number one is a more simpler layout
Mhm.
for ease of use. I think number two
Okay.
accessible still is also hard to find.
Yeah, and it looks like as well over here on option 2, it looks like they have like a dryer right next to the door as well. So you actually lose a little bit of your width coming out of this washroom. I'm assuming, because it doesn't identify in here, but I'm assuming that this piece is a hair dryer or just like a hand dryer that's located on the wall. And so you do lose a little bit of width in that sense from that protruding off the wall. They're usually pretty slim these days, but just something to kind of take note of.
I also agree that option 1 is better. I think also just knowing females and that it's a banquet hall, women will spend time in the washrooms looking in front of the mirrors, which could create obstacles.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. It's a good point. Okay. Thanks for the input, guys. That was awesome. Thanks. Anything else outside of the washroom? So it looks like we have pretty good consensus on keeping it as is with washroom option number 1 versus the second option that they proposed over here. Any other comments on the main floor before we jump over to the second floor? I can zoom out a little bit here too. Okay. So jumping over to the second floor, for those of you that are familiar with most banquet halls, there's not really much space upstairs at all. They just kind of have a couple of offices. And so I'm just going to zoom in over here. So you can see that you have a couple of staircase options coming up, and then you have the elevator. So I will say, because this is a pre-application, I didn't put any comments in about the tactile stairs or evacuation chairs quite yet. I don't mind leaving that for when we actually have the site plan application come through. But the elevator does have access to the second floor where you have the bridal suites, and then you have access to the offices and a boardroom that's going to be available over here. And I'm curious with this piece, they've identified here a sliding door. This would be my only concern, is if it's a sliding door, how do you really make that barrier free, right? And so unfortunately with parts of the OBC, really, like, unless it's a public access area, they don't have to provide a barrier free door over here. But I think it's something that we can definitely look at once we get the site plan application, is putting that comment in there that the preference is that we don't have a sliding door being used in order to get into the staff corridor, versus just a regular operating door that could have a barrier-free button added to it in order to create access for staff members to be able to get into the offices in the boardroom. But you can see very basic washrooms on the second floor. These wouldn't be accessible washrooms based on the space. We can add the comment in, I'll put it out there, but just based, and I'll let you guys know, just based on the Ontario Building Code, that there is no requirement. But we can add those comments in if you guys feel that there would be a need to maybe potentially add in a universal washroom. The only issue with it is you would be kind of picking and choosing which one, because there isn't a shared washroom option for anyone over here. Each of these bridal suites and offices have like their own not shared, but their own washrooms. Depending on where we place a universal washroom, only some would benefit from it, right? It wouldn't be a shared space over here. So any comments on the second floor based on what I just told you guys?
I would suggest accessible washroom in at least one bridal suite. I think one would be enough because they can advertise what is
Yep.
accessible and what is not.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm just going to play the other side here where if they do have two wedding parties sharing, because they do have them, whichever bridal suite is being used, you don't know which family might have accessible needs, right? So that's all I'm going to point out. I'm not against adding that in. I actually already wrote the comment down. I can definitely propose it over to the developers. But it's just going to be one of those situations where it depends on who gets what bridal suite. But that would be up to the vendor to kind of create those accommodations if they're ever requested, right? So that's something we can definitely be looking into.
You can always request both and then see what
Yep.
they
Yep.
come up with.
Yep. That's not an issue.
Matt, even though you say that the washroom isn't required up there,
Yep.
accessible washroom, that seems to be sort of silly to me in a way, because especially if there are two rooms like that, I mean, you could be having a very involved wedding procession that you need these things. And if they're up there for those reasons, it seems to me that it's important, whether it says it doesn't need to be required, but it seems to me to be important to have an accessible washroom, at least for the use of everybody that can go to that needs it, if they're up there. Because in the wedding party, there could be people with accessibility issues, whether they're the bride and groom or whether they're just ushers or whatever.
Yep. So when Max made that comment, I did write down to just we'll put in the request to see if it's possible to have both the suites equipped with an accessible washroom, and we will see what they come back with.
Or even one that's in between them, just where they're joined or something or whatever.
Okay, perfect. Next slide is just elevation drawings and visuals of just the building outside. So nothing really for us to comment on over here. Same thing with the next one and the following, all just elevation drawings. So that kind of closes that section. Any other comments on top of what's been provided? Looks like we're good. So Madam Chair, it's back over to you.
Okay. All right. So if there are no further comments from the committee, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. That brings us to item 6.2, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application OPA 2021-03, ZBA 2021-03, and SP 2021-07. And this will be submission number 4. It is for 15296 to 15314 Young Street. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Really?
Joanne?
Okay, I heard Haley first. Thank you, Haley. And Joanne, I'll use you for the second. Okay, Matt, you can start us off.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for indicating that. I'll just repeat that piece. So this is going to be submission 4 for this site plan application. This is an error on my part where I put in submission number 2. So going into this application, we have looked at this a number of times. We have had a couple of comments, so I'll stick to the ones that we just went over in submission number 3, which I remember where we had talked about the cross slopes for the parking and then some of the ramp elevations inside the building, which I'll show you momentarily. Both were addressed, so I'll get that right off the top. And then I'll just give you guys a quick tour again, just kind of refresh your memories on this site plan application, and then we'll see if there's any other final comments that you guys would like to add in for the submission. So jumping over to the front of the building, each of these units has a patio on the outside, and you'll see that the main entrance leading into the actual residential building is located over here on Yonge Street. The sidewalk continues along the entire building, where you have this kind of daylight triangle area on the outside, and then it wraps around the building all the way to the back. And then over here is where you'll have your main entrance for vehicles entering into the residential building. In the parking lot, we do have 2 barrier-free parking spots. Both of them meet the requirements in terms of being type A and type B with an access aisle. In our earlier comments back in previous submissions, we didn't want the roundabout being used as from, if you guys remember, this was originally the only path that was leading off the roundabout, and so it was going to be shared with the access aisle, and the developer did provide a separate access point into the main entrance for the drop-off area. That way, the access aisle is left specifically just for the barrier-free parking. In further drawings where I showed you guys the grade, you will see the 1.5 cross slope that's been added in there, so that's been added. So no concerns in terms of the grade over here for the parking lot. And then we did mention in earlier submissions about having some in the eating area, just making sure that the seats are provided accessible, but there was no other comments from what I remember. This is going way back, but for sure from submission 3, we didn't have any other comments on the exterior of this building. I'm going to drop into the interior. So here we are looking at floor number 1 for the parking. So this is as soon as you come down. Here you'll see that we have 4 barrier-free parking spots evenly distributed between type A and type B. So I'll zoom in here first, and then we'll jump over to the second parking floor. So in this specific area, we have a couple of parking spots over here with a drop-off area that has a vestibule that leads into the elevator area. In our previous comments, we did address the fact that the ramps needed to come down to an appropriate elevation, so they have done that as well. And then you can see the 4th spot located over here. So both of them, all 4 of them are on the shortest route into entry points leading into the vestibule where you have the elevators. Just jumping over to the side over here, on the second floor, we have 1 additional barrier-free parking spot with its access aisle as a type B spot, and it's been located right next to the elevator lobby. So again, on the shortest distance leading into that area. In terms of the floor plan, we'll go over in the most detail very quickly over here, just the first floor, because everything above it is very repetitive. But taking a look at the main floor, I don't know if we discussed this actually in the past. I know we had a similar application in the past where we talked about the lift leading into this, but I don't know if we did it for this specific site plan application. So that might be something we want to discuss. Leading into the vestibule, you will see that above it, there is a lobby that can be used. So they have provided a lift that leads up to this upper lobby. And then you can see as you go further down the hall, you have the actual elevators that lead up to each of the 6 stories. So I don't mind going to the developer and just asking to see what this lift is that's being used. But you guys can refresh me. I think it was a different application. We didn't look at this one specifically with the lift, but I know we had a good thorough discussion about this in the past within a different site plan application where we were saying that we wanted to make sure that they're using an appropriate one that isn't focused on having key access to be able to get in there. So you guys can chime in on that if you guys want me to bring that point up again. That's not an issue. Is that something that we would like to do just to kind of for safety measure?
I would say so, yes. And I think that you're right that it was a different application we were looking at. But yeah, we've had, I think, a few conversations about this type of thing, these lifts, and making sure they're not sort of key activated.
Yeah, so I'll put those comments in as well, just to ensure that it's something that's appropriate for this use. But it's great that they've added in the lift to get to the second lobby. And like I said, they do have the actual elevators that lead into the residential building for each of the 6 floors. Leading around, oh, sorry, go ahead, Max.
Do you not like this at all? Sometimes a important comment, but you mean it seems like they might have space for a
Were you saying that you think there's space for a ramp to be added here?
yeah.
That will be tough for sure. So ramps require a ton of space in order to have like an appropriate grade, and to go up a whole story. I can already picture that there's no way they're going to be able to fit in a ramp over here. So
So I saw that it was like a 3-step.
oh no problem. There's nothing to apologize about, Max. I'm glad that you asked it. So yeah, I think having the lift is already a good piece that they added in there, right? I agree. I think we're all on the same page. None of us are a fan of the lift. But the fact that they added one in to service this upper lobby is at least a good initiative. And like I said, they do have an official elevator for each of the actual floors that are meant for the residencies. So at least they did put that piece in there. The rest of the main entrance we've gone over a couple of times, so there shouldn't be any surprises here. It's a mix of different types of bedrooms. So some 2 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms, 1+ dens, with hallway servicing each of them. And then that continues essentially. So the main floor does have the amenity entrance to the outdoor amenity. We've discussed that in previous applications, so there's no issues with that. And then taking a look at each of the remaining floors, they're all pretty much going to be pretty much a spitting image of each other, right? So they're going to have their own stories and different bedrooms, but they're all going to be very similar to one another. So again, I'm just going to zoom out here and show you guys a little bit quicker, but you can see 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 4th floor, and 5th floor. Next page, we'll have the 6th floor, but each of them basically have their bedrooms, and that's pretty much it. So I'll zoom in just to give you guys a quick preview of each of them, not in any particular order. But as you can see, there's no real concern points over here. In previous applications, we talked about having the evacuation chairs added in as a consideration. But there's nothing else on these additional floors, as you can see, just bedrooms. Jumping in over here, same thing. Repetition over here, and then I will jump over to the 6th floor, as you can see. A little bit less rooms up here, just a little bit larger, but same kind of layout, main hallway with staircases and elevators leading into each of these different, into the different rooms. So nothing surprising there. Like I said, we've taken a look at this a couple of times. I'll go through the elevations very quickly just to give you guys a reminder on how it looks from the outside. And then I'll show you the actual elevation drawings of the parking lot where they address the actual slope. So again, renditions from the outside. And then over here, as we zoom in on this last page, no, it wasn't even this one, next one. There you go. You can see the 1.5 cross slope going across the parking spaces over there. And I've gone around the rest of this. The sidewalks elevations look good, so there was no concerns over here. Same thing with this little patio area on the corner. They have a minor slope of just looks like what, 1.8, so no concerns with that piece either. So that was pretty much it for this one. Like I said, I didn't have any further comments, but I can definitely address that piece with the actual lift itself, because I think it warrants just being brought up to pick the right one where you have no issues with people being able to access without keys or anything along those lines. But I'll open up the floor to the committee, see if there's anything else that you guys would like to be added in here. Otherwise, we're pretty much good to jump into the next one. So it looks like we're good, Rochelle. So,
Okay.
or submissions, I would assume. So I think we're good there.
Okay. All right. So if there are no further comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, that moves us on to item 6.3, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application SP 2021-14, submission number 1, and this is for 32 Don Hillock Drive. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Joanne?
Thanks, Joanne, and a second.
Max.
Thank you, Max. Okay, Matt, you can start us off on this.
Thank you very much. Okie dokes. So these are some new ones. So this is going to be submission 1 that we're taking a look at for this industrial complex. There was a couple of comments. Overall, it's not bad. Like most industrial site plans that we take a look at, there isn't usually too many concerns just because there's not a lot of public coming to these locations. So I'll zoom in on the first page and kind of give you guys a reference of how this area looks, because we're taking a look at it for the first time. So leading off of Don Hillock Drive, you'll see that we have the east side setback, which is going to be the main entrance for most people coming in to visit these units. So individuals would enter in. One of the first comments that I mentioned is that there isn't enough barrier-free parking. So they have provided 2, a type A and a type B. They should be providing a minimum of 3. So you will notice in my comments that they are required to add in the additional barrier-free parking. And I have also requested for the additional barrier-free parking to be located close to Unit 1 and Unit 2. There are some pieces that we're going to talk about over here about Unit 1 with the ramp and the stairs, but I'll get to that momentarily. So I'll just kind of continue on with leading around. So there is no sidewalk that kind of leads into this, so people would be driving, but they do have an exterior path of travel that leads around each of the units. Unit 1 all the way up to Unit, 7 are fully connected, and then they do have an exterior path of travel that leads around to the back, but no individuals would really be going back there regardless. The fire route kind of leads around there, and then you'll see on the other side, you will have where your trucks are coming into their ports and dropping things off. So there shouldn't be any issues on this side in that sense. Now, I wanted to mention it to you guys, and you'll see it a little bit better in the next couple of drawings. There is one ramp on this main path, and you'll see it in the elevation drawings a little bit better with how it's stationed. But leading in from Unit 7 and 6, where you have the barrier-free parking, this is all going to be graded going downwards, and then, upwards. And then over here, you actually have a ramp. So you can't tell in this first drawing, but I will show it to you guys a little bit afterwards. There is a ramp that leads up from Unit 2 to Unit 1. And then from Unit 1, you have a staircase that leads up to the corner of that intersection over here. That's Don Hillock Drive. So there is full access to Unit 1. So the ramp leads to the staircase and then the actual door into Unit 1. And there's a staircase leading down towards the back side of the building. So everyone still has access on this main exterior path of travel for parking, especially if we do provide that additional barrier-free parking over here between Unit 1 and Unit 2. Each of the units will have an accessible and barrier-free entrance into each of them. There is, unfortunately, from the elevation, you guys can see a couple of staircases that lead over to the corner of the units, and you'll have a better depiction of that as we take a look at other drawings. I'm going to jump over to the next page. Before I do, is there any questions on this first drawing that we're taking a look at?
I would just comment to put tactile in the cases so stairs because they are a bit of an unexpected obstacle.
Yeah, so you beat me to it, Max. I do have it in the comments to do the proposed tactile plates. Fantastic. So thanks for adding that comment in. But yes, we do have the comments in to have the tactile plates for the staircases on the exterior over here. We also do have our regular comments for each of the units to have proper automatic door openers with the proper time delays for each of the doors as well. So all of those pieces are in there. And then my final kind of comments specifically on this, which I'll show you guys as we kind of go towards speaking about the ramp itself, is the concerns with the landings that we have between the units. Doesn't look like there's enough space. So I did comment on that, making sure that there is actual platforms. But again, once we get to that portion, I'll go into a little bit more detail with the widths that we expect there. And then finally, there was also the consideration for evacuation chairs for the buildings themselves, for the staircases on the other side as well. So those comments were all included. So you can see on the next drawing, it's a little bit easier to see the actual ramp that we're speaking about. So we'll start over here on unit 7 from the barrier-free parking. So you have your type A and type B with its access aisle and curb ramp. It actually looks, I'm just taking a look at this drawing right now. It looks like they indicated an additional curb ramp over here from the type B spot. So that's interesting. I didn't catch that the first time, but it looks like they have an additional curb ramp leading out on top of the access aisle. So that's good. People have additional options available to them. I haven't seen that actually before, so that's interesting. But you can see the exterior path of travel leads down. Elevation is going up. It does meet the standards. It is high, right? So you're looking at like 5%, 4%. So it's right towards the top of this, but you'll see why it has such an elevation increase in the next couple of drawings. And so you can see this portion over here is going to be the ramp. And so from what I understand, it looks like they're trying to propose, I think they might be trying to say that because it's 5%, it's not a technical ramp, right? Because an exterior path of travel can go up to 5%. And so I did make the comment in there, and I'm curious to see what the developer says. But usually with the ramp, if that's what this is meant to be, there's supposed to be platforms on both sides of them. And the platforms need to be about 1.6, this is just rounding, it's 1.67 meters that are supposed to be for the platforms themselves in terms of width. And so it does not meet those standards, but my gut is telling me that they're proposing this is just a regular exterior path of travel. And so that's why they don't have those platforms indicated on there. So we'll see what they say, but I did include those comments in there. And for the cross slope to ensure that it's not more than 1.5 in there as well. So those comments have been made on the ramp. We'll see what they say on that piece. Like I said, my hunch is that they're trying to use that as just a regular exterior path of travel, which it would by the AODA standards be accessible, right? So we'll see what they say on that piece. The next couple of drawings are just basic interior drawings. So again, we're looking at industrial buildings, so there's nothing that they're showing on the inside. And then here you can see that steep drop over here on these elevations. So these are the sides of the buildings, but we'll take a look at the west and east elevations. And so you can see these staircases, you can see these jumps that come up, right? So these are quite elevated. And then you can see the other elevations here. So that's the reason for these slopes in that area. And then this is just another good depiction to kind of get a better idea. So I'll zoom in on these as well. And so once again, you could see that they do have that. And this is again why I think it is a proposed ramp, because you can see that they do have a gate basically put on the side over here because of the level that it's going from. So again, we will see what the developer comes back to. We did indicate it in our original comments, so we should hear back on the specific piece. But here you can see on this very clearly the ramp that's being designated with the stairs leading up over towards where the street is. So those were the comments that I had on this specific site plan application. These are just elevation drawings, just to show you guys the different grades. But again, no concerns over here with the accessible parking. And then again, you can see that they're indicating pretty much almost a 5% slope leading up over here. So my hunch is that this will be indicated as just an exterior path of travel versus an actual ramp coming up to the staircase. But that's it for the comments that I had for this application. Floor is open to the committee to have any questions, or let me know if you guys want to jump back a couple of pages and take a look at something again. Okey dokes. Oh, got one. Go ahead.
Yeah, where's the ramp? My only concern is that, because the path of travel is so narrow, it really might ironically impede the path of travel.
Yeah, so like I said, we'll get a little bit more information once we get the submissions with the comments returned from the developer, because right now, like, we're kind of just playing with assumptions to see what it is over here. So let's wait to hear back from the developer on what this is. Are they indicating this is an exterior path of travel, or are they indicating it as a ramp? And from there, I think we could have a little bit more of a wholesome discussion on what we want to see with that piece. But again, the comments are in there to treat it as a ramp with the legislative requirements. So if it is a proposed ramp, they'll have to meet those requirements. And if they don't, we will have that discussion on what we expect from it if they're trying to indicate it as an exterior path of travel. Thanks, Max. Okay, Rochelle, I think we're good.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like there are any further comments. So I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Moving on to item 6.4, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application SP 2021-15. This is submission number 1 for 420 Addison Hall Circle. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne. Okay, Matt, do you want to start us off?
Well, thank you. So we are taking a look at another industrial complex. Had a couple of comments, but again, fairly simple. So we'll do the same thing we did earlier. We'll start off with just kind of a review of what the site itself looks like, and then I'll go through the comments that we have for it. So we have 2 entrances coming off of Addison Hall Circle. We have one that leads towards the rear of the building where you have your trucks coming in for the loading docks themselves. And then we do have a roadway pathway that leads around. So as you can see that there is a future expansion area currently allocated over here, but it's not being proposed at this time. But the road will lead around the future expansion area and then comes back over to the side. In the top right corner, you can see a nice storage snow storage area away from all of the parking. So there shouldn't be any issues with any of the snow being allocated over here. And then again, the road leads all the way back over to Addison Hall Circle and then leads back out of this complex. So on the upper part of this image, this is where you're going to have your actual parking for anyone coming into these buildings themselves. The first comments that I had on this was they are short about 2 barrier-free parking spots. So they should have 6 barrier-free parking spots added into this complex. So they do have a type A and a type B for the 4 evenly distributed. And so they actually have to add 2 more in. And so that should work pretty nicely depending on where they place them in over here. I made a comment to evenly distribute them. So maybe they actually move these ones towards the center a little bit closer over to Addison Hall, and then just place the additional 2 barrier-free parking spots over here towards the center of building A. So that was one of the comments that I put in over there. The other issue with this site plan application, and I'll zoom in to show you guys this, the actual concrete walkway is a little bit short of specs. So they've indicated over here that the exterior path of travel leading around building A is only 1.2 meters. And so I've indicated that they do have to meet the exterior path of travel in terms of having it at 1.5 meters. And so that would encompass the entire way going around. One of the nice features from what I'm reading over here, it seems like the entire curb is designated as a barrier-free curb. So any of the parking spots that are going to be located over here in front of building A, looks like all of them will have barrier-free access. So even for those that might not have to actually use the barrier-free parking spots, if they use any of the other ones, they would also have a curb depression leading into the exterior path of travel, leading into the different main entrances of this building. The last comment that I had for this specific application is just for the main entrances to have the automatic door openers with the proper time delays. So that was the only other comment I had for this. I'll quickly swing through the rest of the drawings. They're all very similar. I used the best ones for this site plan application were actually the landscape drawings. So that's where you're going to see a lot of like the shrubbery and the trees kind of changing from each of these pages, but they're all pretty much the same. You can see that we're taking a look at basically just parking and main entrances. Let me just zoom out over here. Again, nothing different on this final drawings. And then nothing on the inside or the roof. These last pages over here are the elevations. So as you can see, front entrances leading into the buildings like we were discussing. The second depiction over here on the south elevation is just where the trucks would be coming in to do their loading and unloading. And then the final drawings are just on the sides of the buildings. And yeah, so this again, very easy site plan application to kind of take a look at, as most industrial buildings are. This last drawing over here is just of the actual grades themselves, so I can show you very quickly. Not indicating any issues. And we'll take a closer look at the barrier-free parking ones once they relocate and add the additional 2, because I'm curious to see where they kind of spot them. But they haven't indicated what the actual cross slopes and slopes are for the 2 barrier-free drawings, as you can see on this one here as well. So that'll be something we'll see on the next set on submission number 2. But is there any questions or further concerns for us to comment on this? That's it for me. Okay, Madam Chair, they're all yours.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with no further comments, then I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. So on to item 6.5, memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application OPA 2021-02, ZBA 2021-02, and SUB 2021-01. And this is submission number 2 for 162, 306, 370, 434, and 488 St. John's Side Road. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Joanne.
Thanks, Joanne. And a second?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay. All right, Matt, you can begin us on this.
Thanks, guys. And so this is going to be the last site plan application that we're going to be taking a look at. We have taken a look at this neighborhood, and on the drawings we just received for this round, I actually used the landscape drawings. Sorry, I'm just frozen here. It should be switching over momentarily. So bear with me. They're not the greatest, but we will go through them in a second. So the color should be coming in as well. It's just loading up a little bit slower right now. Yeah, okay. We're going to pause for a second because it's freezing a little bit on my end. There we go. It's thinking. There we go. Okay. Sorry, guys, you can see the computer struggling. With the landscape drawings, there's a little bit more detail, and so usually it's a little bit more difficult to have this load properly when we're on Zoom. All right, looks like I've got control here. Okay, so starting off at St. John's Side Road, I want to show you guys, because we've been talking about it with each of the neighborhoods that we've been taking a look at, and I'm zooming in so much because the paths of travel aren't easy to see on the site plan. So I'll follow it with my mouse here so you guys can see it through the entire neighborhood. So over here on St. John's Side Road, they have the crosswalks indicated with exterior paths of travel leading into the neighborhood where my mouse is. This little stretch over here is the exterior path of travel that leads into the neighborhood. So it does go across into the next section. And then you can see over here on Street E, it also goes across to west, all the way around over to Street B, where it ends. There is no crosswalk on this side over here proposed. The only way to get over to Street B using the sidewalk would be from the main street going across, and then you'll see that from here, Street B, you do have the exterior path of travel that leads around these units all the way around the neighborhood. And then on the other side, sorry, go ahead.
Is there a sidewalk on Street E?
Yep.
Okay.
Street E right over here. So I'll start right back at the corner, Matthew, and then you can see that it does lead around over here.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it ends at Street B over here. So then going back to Street B, we have the sidewalk that continues around the neighborhood. Street C does not look like it has anything. So you can see over here off the main road, it intersects continuing up Street A, but Street C in this little cul-de-sac, it does not look like they have an exterior path of travel over there. And then you can see the path of travel continues up over to the neighborhood park and school. And then same thing over here for Street D. It does not appear that there is a proposed sidewalk leading into the cul-de-sac. So in terms of comments for this site plan application, again, we're kind of looking at landscape drawings, so you can't see what's in too much detail. But for the neighborhood park, you can see over here in this drawing, it doesn't look like any barrier-free parking was proposed. And so I've indicated that barrier-free parking has to be proposed over here for the neighborhood park. They've now indicated over here a playground area. So we have our comments indicating that they have to incorporate accessibility features, as well as ensuring that they're using firm, stable surfaces for the playground itself. So they should come back to us with what kind of features they're going to be adding into this playground. The last comments that I had over here, and I stole these thoughts from our friend Joanne over here in previous site plan applications, we were looking at them, but ensuring that all the vistas actually have barrier-free access to them as well. So there's actually a couple indicated over here in these little green spots. And so I've asked for each of them to have barrier-free access leading into them. Now, there is probably some paths, because you can see obviously these are lots. So I can't tell from these drawings where the access is into all of these, but some of them are located obviously close to the main street. And so we're ensuring that there is going to be barrier-free access into these viewing vistas. Before I let you guys jump in, I will show you guys the other drawing just so you guys can see everything. And then we'll go ahead and see if you guys have any additional comments that you would like to see added in. And again, bear with me as I kind of zoom out here. It takes a little while to load on these ones.
So on the next slide, there's a thing that says multi-use path, and that's on, that's good.
They have the trail system here too, yeah. So
Because they got the multi-use path from St. John Side Road all the way up into Newmarket.
yeah. Yeah, and this is going to be, like Matthew was just mentioning, up into Newmarket. So over here on the opposite side, there's going to be a neighborhood on Newmarket side that corresponds and connects with this neighborhood over here on St. John's.
Yeah.
And then let me just jump over to these last drawings here. This is why I usually avoid adding the landscape drawings in, because they're a lot of detail and they're very slow whenever we're in these meetings.
You need a more powerful computer.
I mean, you can talk to my IT team for me, Matthew. I wouldn't complain. So it looks like this is actually the last page, right? If I'm not mistaken, I can't see the page count on the PDF, but it looks like we are on the last page. So any other comments from the committee? I have those 4 points that we discussed over there. Anything else that you guys would like to see added in over here?
My only thing I wish I could see is where the mailboxes are.
We can do a quick search, but I don't think it's going to be on this.
I don't see it, so I don't think it's there.
No, I haven't really seen them usually when we get these neighborhood drawings.
Because one of the things I've always recommended, I thought the town should do, is put no parking in front of the mailboxes. There's a lot of people, like in my neighborhood, there's an older lady up the street who can't get to the mailbox because people keep parking in front of it.
Yeah, that happens right outside my house too. It drives me nuts. It's worse in the winter, right? Because you can't actually get around the snowbanks and people will park right in front of the mailboxes. So there's no access. There's always a truck that does it. Yeah, I don't see anything on here, Matthew. I know you've probably already taken a look at this, so I don't see anything in terms of the mailboxes here.
Yeah, that's my only beef with these kinds of neighborhoods.
I often think that even the curb in front of the mailbox is a problem, because sometimes you're not near anybody's driveway either to get up. And it would be nice if the fellow that was cleaning the sidewalk could clean that ramp out and have a ramp down from the mailbox. But, you know, it's always a different problem here and there, so.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think it's good.
So I think we're good, Madam Chair, and I'll hand it back over to you then. We'll jump over to 6.
Actually, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
Because they have in the connection to St. John Side Road as crosswalks, means they're putting in traffic lights. Are they going to have audible pedestrian?
Yeah, they'll have the audible pedestrian signal. So any new intersections will always have those as a part of the standards where they have to include them in. So any of the projects we've been working on is retrofit. But for new intersections, yeah, they'll have the audible pedestrian signals. But it doesn't hurt. Like, I don't mind putting in there. Like, a lot of the comments we put in there are things that they should be doing, right? So I'm more than happy to add that piece in there. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
So I'll just write that piece in there and then we could always add that comment. I rather that the comments be in there saying that we requested this and want it to be ensured versus just assuming that they do the right thing. As we see on a regular basis, we always catch things that they're supposed to be doing regardless, right? So it's good to add in. So it's a good point.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Madam Chair, it's back to you then.
Okay, so with no further comments, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And we move now to item 6.6, our roundtable discussion regarding the Town of Aurora Multi-Year Accessibility Plan 2022 to 2026. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. And a second?
Haley?
Thanks, Haley. Okay, Matt, do you want to begin our discussion on this?
I will. So on, I know we spoke about it last time. So our plan did go over to council on February 15th. There was no issues. It was endorsed, which was fantastic. So our plan will be implemented. We will start budgeting for the future years with the capital projects that we have included in there as well. And each of those will obviously come through the committee and it will go through council as well. So we will see each of those projects that we proposed come through over the next 4 years. So that was exciting. I do want to echo that we did receive great praise from council on the work that we've been doing over the term. So hats off to you guys. This has been a team effort over the 4 years. And I always speak very highly of this group. You guys have been fantastic to work with. Your insights have always been very helpful on everything that we do on a monthly basis. So I received the praise, but it goes out to you guys as well, as we have been a team working on this together. So I wanted to pass that along. The second piece I wanted to show you guys. So our video is ready, and I didn't want to email it to you guys. I wanted to kind of watch it together actually. So I'm going to play it for you guys right now. So I'm going to just quickly stop sharing my screen, and then hopefully the audio comes through, and you guys will let me know when I share this that it does work. Okay, share.
Is very excited about this.
Yeah, and so like I said, I didn't want to do like a social media post or anything until we had an opportunity to watch together, because I think you guys did a fantastic job. So let me know quickly as we go in there to just make sure volume is working. I'll do a quick check.
What is it?
You guys hear it? Like when I had it there? Yeah, okay, I got a nod. So I'm gonna start it again, and then you guys can quickly watch this and we can chat afterwards.
What does accessibility mean to me? Well,
Accessibility means that the community is designed so that everyone can access it.
Accessibility means the elimination and reduction of barriers.
Making all things in all places accessible to everyone. Whether it's technology or moving around a building barrier-free, it should all be accessible.
People get what they need, and that's how they succeed better in our community.
Everybody be able to get wherever they need to get with ease.
access, about the equitable sharing of space.
Independence, freedom, having a choice,
Inclusion of all different people.
having the same opportunities as everyone else, being thought of.
We as a community have to strive better to include everyone under that umbrella.
And I think it's a really important issue.
Here at Queen's Diamond Jubilee Park, which is an accessible park in the town of Aurora, and it speaks to the town's commitment to, no matter what your disability is, we wrap our facilities around everyone's needs, and this is a prime example of that.
When we've gotten to the point where accessibility is taken for granted by everyone, when it's part of the foundational stages of every project, not just sort of a well-intentioned afterthought.
Simply, quality and inclusion.
When a person with a disability can go somewhere without a plan B, without having to plan for the possibility of bumping into barriers and having to plow through them, even though we've gotten really good at that. I think at that point, accessibility will be sort of this relic of a former time. I really hope I'm around to see that.
So what are your thoughts? Honestly, when I watched it, guys, every time I watch it, I have a smile on my face. I think it does a really good job of encompassing your guys' comments. And I think Lisa did a fantastic job. I really didn't even expect it to be that good. It was excellent, I think, in my opinion. And you guys did a fantastic job. The first time I watched it, I was just smiling, just watching what you guys said in there, and it turned out amazing. And you guys all had fantastic input on there. So again, fantastic work from your guys' end. I do want to go ahead and start sharing it. So I just wanted to have you guys to kind of have a first glimpse. So we put it up on the website, and then we're going to go ahead with identifying with the public that we have our awareness video that's going to be available on the main page of the accessibility page. And then from there, it'll be the start of our awareness campaign, which was Haley's vision so many years ago. But we finally got to it, which is obviously the right way to be moving. And then we will continue doing this. And I think it's a great way to not only get engagement from the community, but really show them what we're doing on an ongoing basis, right? So later on today, we can chat a little bit about, at the end of the meeting, what we kind of want to do as our next step. Haley, I know you had some ideas already, but we'll get the entire group to kind of chime in on that piece. But I don't know if you guys want to express any comments, but I think you guys did an amazing job and the video turned out very well. It shows very well on the website. Okay, crickets, but I saw you guys all smiling, so I'm assuming.
I love it. Thank you, Harry, for starting this. I really think this is an important thing to promote, and I am proud that our town endorsed it.
Thanks, Max, and I echo everything that you said there. Okie dokes. So we'll jump back over to the boring things. I'll give you guys a quick update, and we'll talk about the awareness campaign at the end of this. So at least we'll have something nice and light to talk about, and where we want to kind of move forward with the education campaign of the accessibility plan. So I did receive, we got our quote officially in for the Aurora Senior Center ramp that we've been talking about. So the door operators, we went ahead, got installed last year. So those are ready and usable. We did the drawings last year. So we sent out the ramp estimations out, and we got one back. I'm not even going to ask you guys to guess this, but I was blown away at the new cost of what these are going for. So I know all of us are going through inflation right now, and we're seeing what's happening with gas, materials, and everything. So the ramp costs now almost $40,000 to install. Yeah. So essentially, we can't pull it out of our operating budget. That's more than we have on an annual basis. So the good thing is we already went through with an application. So the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility does have a grant out this year, specifically for obviously accessibility and seniors. So we have applied in it, and that includes having this ramp installed, as well as actually adding in additional operators at the senior center to a couple of their rooms. So they have a couple of different recreation rooms and stuff that normally just have the doors propped open, which is obviously fine. But in case the door is ever closed, a different operations staff member is there and didn't remember to open them up for the seniors, we want to add in an additional door operator. So we kind of combine that project together to have a couple of door operators installed at the Aurora Senior Center and the ramp. So we should hear back in the next month or two on the grant, and I'll give you guys the update on that piece. If the grant doesn't go through, this will have to turn into a capital project. We won't be able to pull this through the operating budget like we originally hoped, which would have been easier to do. But at $40,000, it's crazy. So the individual basically broke it down to me where it looks like the ramp itself is about $20,000 to $30,000, and he was saying even just the railing system, which isn't that long, because the actual metal is so expensive right now, he was estimating that would cost about $10,000. Now, I don't remember off the invoice how they broke it down and what cost what, but it was still quite alarming to see a $40,000 quote on a ramp being installed over there. And it's not that big, right? So wanted to share that with you guys, and then I will give you guys a heads up as soon as we hear back on the grant. If we get the grant money, fantastic. We will go ahead with getting it complete in 2022. Otherwise, we'll have to go to council in 2023 once the new reappointments happen through the election, and we'll have to get that money through capital funding in order to complete that portion of the project. Any questions on that?
Yes, Joanne. It's Joanne. I'd like to ask something.
Yeah, go ahead, Joanne. And then Max will take it after.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were speaking up at the same time.
No
but is there any way that we can go to get this ramp done some other way? Can we get any large companies to donate money to the town to cover these accessible issues? You know, when the town was founded, none of these things were around and done, pretty much. You know, our old stores still don't have automatic doors in a lot of cases. And I just wondered if there would be something we could do, make a competition or do something to see how we could get some money.
I think it's a possibility for us to look into because we already have the grant application that's gone through. We'll wait to see what comes of the grant. And like I said, we will, as soon as I know, I'll bring it right back to the table for us to discuss. And if that's something we want to pursue, we most definitely can.
I don't even mind helping because that's the thing I do. Donations are my bag. So
sounds good. Well, I'll be calling on your card then, Joanne. And then Max, I think if you can get them by donation, it's so much better. And I mean, I know you might not get it all, but it'd be better to get something than nothing. Yep, absolutely. Max, you wanted to jump in as well?
We could do something magic for them, you know, like put a picture somewhere or do something, you know, in the paper or do something to get it put up for them, but what they contributed to the town and that type of thing. The publicity does a lot of companies a lot of good. So.
Yep, definitely.
Thank you.
I'm just thinking, was everybody to rate so the price hopefully goes down and the prices are high these days with all the stuff, so it might be better to wait. Sorry, I just had my income crash.
So I'm just going to paraphrase Max, just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think just the long story short is potentially waiting until kind of things settle down in terms of pricing, right? It's definitely an option. I mean, if the grant doesn't happen in the next couple of months, that's going to be the case regardless, right? Even if we're looking for donations, if we go to the capital process, we're still looking at a minimum 1 year's time out. And then it goes into securing who's going to be doing it through an RFP, right? So we're really looking, if it gets to capital, we're looking at this as like an end of 2023, potentially 2024 to accomplish that by the time like all those timelines go through. So we'll have a better indication if we get to that point, Max, of what we're at. It might get worse. It might get better, right? So time will tell in that instance for sure. Any other comments on the absurdity of the cost of a ramp these days? Okay, and then I'll give you guys a quick update on some of the operational projects that we're looking to start up, and then we can jump into the discussion on the awareness campaigns. So I have to do a quick replacement of a pool chair. One of our 24-inch chairs at the Stronach has gotten pretty beat up. This is just a reoccurring thing every 2 to 3 years for us, where the humidity from both of the pools is just bad and the wheels start to kind of rot and rust and stuff, right? So we do have one chair being replaced this year, so that'll be about $2,000. That's going to go towards that. We were actually also discussing with community services, we want to do another sensory path. So a couple of years ago, I don't remember if it was 2019 or 2020 that we accomplished the sensory path at the Stronach Rural Recreation Complex. But we got amazing feedback about it. People loved it. It's still used on a regular basis between the public going into the hockey games as well as our actual camp programs at the Stronach. So we're actually looking at doing an additional sensory path at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex over there on the second floor towards that youth space. There's an entire hallway that can be used for the kids that are coming into the viewing gallery. Again, you have different camp programs that are there running all summer year long. So we wanted to run it by the Accessibility Advisory Committee. It costs about $2,000, but the use that we get from it from both the public and from our programs, I think is is worth the cost. So I just wanted to run it by you guys, see what your thoughts are. But I think it's a great initiative, and we've gotten the feedback already from the public that they do enjoy it. So I think it would be nice to add it into that facility as well.
Yeah, would it be more beneficial to put it somewhere closer to the accurate main viewing area?
Yeah, we can definitely look at where we want to do the placement. We haven't come to terms with where exactly it's going to be placed quite yet. We have community services kind of creating the logos and the drawings of what they want the sensory path to look like. And then once we have an idea of what it's going to formally take place at, I can bring that over to you guys. And we can discuss where we want to kind of get it placed. We were thinking the second floor over there just because it is a little bit quieter as well. And actually the flooring is a little bit less slippery up there, I find. So like when I used to work in aquatics, I used to always take that main floor at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex on that main area between the pool or even those hockey arenas. And I always found it was very, very slippery. So we were thinking the second floor as well from a safety perspective. You have a little bit less foot traffic kind of going through there, especially like in the winter months, kind of leaving water and stuff behind. So that was our thought as well, but that's not set in stone, and we can chat about that a little bit more in detail when we get to that point. But yeah, we can explore a couple of the different options, and we could even actually do a video tour like we have done in the past with the facilities to kind of give you guys an update of what that space would look like, and then we can kind of pick and choose what would be best. Anyone oppose the idea? I saw a lot of heads shaking, so I know there's approval for it. Anyone not agree with the idea or wants to see something different? I think I saw everyone. I can't see Joanne, but I haven't heard anything, but I've seen everyone else shaking their heads. Okie dokes. And then the last thing that we're looking at adding into the operating cost, and I think we spoke about, I don't remember if we spoke about it this year or I brought it up, that was an item that we wanted to discuss in 2021. But we were looking at the Snoozlin kits and the carts that they're building this year. So I'm still on the fence, and this is why I'm bringing it up, because I wanted your guys' opinions. And I know Haley specifically, you kind of see the stuff on a regular basis. I'm not overly sold quite yet on the sensory carts and the kits. They're still pretty expensive. If you want a fairly robust one, they're about $5,000 to $6,000. And you'll get some of like the bubble tubes and like the strings and some of the tactile features, but I don't know that they're as good as they can be quite yet. So I don't know if you guys as a team have seen anything different or what your opinions are on this, but community services would like to see it as an addition to whenever we do have special events, if we do have the sensory rooms. Now that COVID is finally kind of starting to end and we're going to actually have a lot more in-person stuff, that's something that we could add into the sensory rooms that we're going to be adding in for our events. And then even just for our inclusion programs that we run throughout the summer periods, just to help with some sensory issues. Again, I'm still thinking about it. I don't know if I'm completely sold on it, but I did want to bring it to the table to let you guys know that that is a discussion being had amongst staff members, as something potentially to look into for 2022. So if you guys have any thoughts or comments, I would appreciate it to kind of see if you guys have any experiences with any of these items and what your thoughts are on that.
Okay, just because this is my area. I think there's ways to do some of that stuff in a cost-effective way than just buying the cart, like itself as a prepackaged thing. I think, you know, just having access to some different items that feed all 5 senses. You could do like a small, like I have for some of my clients, like just a small bucket full of stuff, right? That kind of feeds all the senses, but is not quite going as far as having those carts, because they are not quite as good as they could be right now.
Yeah.
And you have to have like the real effect of a snoozling room. You have to have the proper, like, has to be dim lighting and this, like, and everything like that. So I'm not sure if that's really the best way that we can use them, because you're not going to have that accessible snoozling room with a quiet space and dark room and all of this stuff. So I think it's better to focus on maybe creating something that uses the 5 senses. You have something for sight, you have something for different tactile and touch, but it's probably a lot cheaper to do.
Yeah, and that's where I agree. So I don't think between the features being offered by these carts and just the spaces that really we have as an organization, you're not really encompassing that true snoozling environment that you're supposed to be kind of looking to achieve, right? So I will still keep the discussion open with community services. I'll let them do the research on it, because like I said, I'm not sold. So I'm curious to see what it is that they want to bring forward as an option. And then if I find something that gives me interest, I will bring it over to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and we can kind of take a look at it as a team and see whether it's worth going into, because it's an expensive investment, right? If you're looking at like $5,000-6,000 for like one cart, and I don't believe that they're just good enough yet to kind of take that money. We'll have that discussion a little bit later on, but I think that we'll probably have it in the next month or two. They'll probably have something for us, so you'll either see it in excuse me, either April or May. We'll have that discussion. Sorry, I had something caught in my throat there. And then the last thing we're going to chat about today, from at least my end, next pieces that we want to talk about for the awareness campaign. So Haley, I don't know if you want to jump in and kind of give your thoughts, because again, kudos, you started this, and I think the first video was absolutely incredible. John, I know you entered in. I don't know if you had a chance to actually see the video as we were watching it or not, but I can send you the link afterwards. But Haley, I don't know if you have thoughts for where we want to go next. I know I've thought about it a little bit, but again, this is your baby, so I'll actually let you lead this off, and we'll kind of go from there with where we want to go next on the awareness campaign.
I feel like it is my baby, this thing now. We had like a couple options I know that we had discussed. So there was kind of going into more broader perspective of what is a disability. I don't think that was quite covered in this video. So I think that's important when people are thinking, because I could tell the committee from my experience when I was doing those posts to go visit places, accessibility to everyone means that it's a physical disability and that's it. And so I think there's a lack of awareness of what our committee would look at even, and what accessibility could mean in terms of like mental health and, you know, accessibility with like all of that stuff. So I think that's one video we kind of talked about looking at. We also talked a lot about doing some challenges so that people could actually, from council to town staff to whoever, could experience what it's like to have different disabilities. So I have ones like for mental health, you know, putting on weights on someone and then asking them to do tasks to represent kind of having depression and then really that weight down feeling, to, you know, asking someone to go out in a wheelchair in the snow when it's not plowed properly, to, you know, experiencing what ADHD is with all, and I would set up all of these different kind of scenarios, and then whoever we invited could come out, or if someone wanted to take the leap to help me do that, that's fine too. But those challenges so people could really experience, because I think showing that and then them speaking about that experience is pretty powerful. So those were kind of my next kind of ideas right after this.
Thank you, Haley. I do have a couple of things that I was thinking as well, but I will go last. I want the rest of the committee to chime in. I don't know if you guys have any other additional ideas on top of what Haley was mentioning, or if you guys have thought of something on your own. So I'll leave the floor open to you guys quickly to see if there's any additional comments, and then I'll go at the end.
Yeah. I like to help you. I was thinking maybe during our meal committee, I want to set up goals for ourselves, like maybe we put out 2 to 3 videos a year.
Sorry, Max, you're cutting off, but I think I caught the gist of it. I think you were mentioning like we're setting goals, and I don't know if this was like the videos or goals, or we as a committee have goals of having 2 to 3 videos out per year. Is that what you were mentioning? Yeah. So yes, we will definitely be doing that. This year will be an interesting year, and so I'll come into the goal piece again at the end because I think it'll connect to what I was going to mention about council, because we're kind of going into an election year and stuff. So we have to be a little bit mindful with what we're going to be doing with councilors over the next couple of months. But yeah, so I'll chat about that in a second, Max. Was there any other ideas potentially from the other committee members on what they would like to potentially see through the awareness campaign that we're going to be launching over the next couple of years?
I had another thought in terms of challenges and stuff. If the street festival ever gets back going again, but that could be a really cool outreach to community, setting up challenges and having, you know, us have some challenges there and seeing if anyone would be willing as a community to be on camera and talk about kind of the experience of going through some of those things, to really, one, it's a good outreach to teach people about different accessibility issues, and then also to kind of get their feedback and get them involved in the videos.
But the street festival is not an Aurora event, though. It's run by the Chamber of Commerce, I think. So
we can't arrange to have a space, and I know the town often has spaces anyways at them.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to just be like the street festival. Like it can be a number of our events. It could be Rib Fest, it could be whatever, right? Like Canada Day, and we set up those challenges. I think it's a great idea, actually. Like if we go, like once we get into those videos for challenges, where we actually just have like the public involved, right? Because you get the genuine answers from the public that experience this and are attending these festivals on a regular basis, right? So I think that would be a good idea for sure.
Another idea I had is maybe reach out to businesses, maybe put out a pamphlet of how to make the business accessible, or maybe we can set out workshops to teach businesses and whoever wants to join to teach them about accessibility.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So Max was kind of speaking to the idea of making videos on how to make your businesses accessible. And so I agree. I think it kind of grows on top of another initiative that Haley was working on with you guys as well, which was kind of like reaching out to the businesses, teaching them about low cost or no cost ideas. I think we can kind of bring those two ideas together, and versus even just having something where you guys always have to physically go out and talk to them. There's a video that we have online to show these basic ideas, and maybe we can kind of like look at the main ones that everyone can do to implement very easily. And that's something that we post on there to kind of kick the start as well, right? So yeah, it's a good idea, Max.
We have
I
a
was just
wonderful
thinking-
lot.
Go ahead, Joanne.
I was going to say, we have a wonderful lot of people in our Voices of Joy choir. We have them intellectually challenged, physically challenged. They've got a man that's totally blind. And then there's their parents and people in the community that come and help us sing. And it's they've had wonderful experiences. We've sung at the Blue Jay games and out in Willow Farms and different places, and it's been really, really good. And a lot of them are really, really competent about telling us, the community, what they feel and everything. And it might be even something that they could pick up on there, because most of them are covered by community living, and that's where it started. But I've been with them now in the choir for 20 years. And there's a wonderful lot of people working there. Some of the people have been working at the Board of Education, and one girl's been there 16 years now. And so anyway, there's a whole bunch of different aspects of what their different disabilities, create in their life.
Yeah, and I think that connects as well with what we were mentioning earlier, like even with the street festival, right? Like, not only just going out and seeing the public, going to these different organizations that are doing things for the community, getting their input, right? So I think we're kind of getting there through a couple of these different branched ideas where we want to have the actual public involved in some of these videos as well, and kind of hearing their input and asking them some questions about different areas, right? So I think that'll be an option as well. Rochelle, I know you wanted to jump in there as well.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add something that just came to mind as Max was speaking, just on the idea of, if there were videos that were teaching businesses how to sort of implement more accessibility friendly sort of elements. Conversely, we could also have either as part of that same video or maybe a different video altogether, where we are actually engaging with businesses and showcasing the sort of accessibility improvements that they've got, or existing elements that they've got, to sort of praise them. And I think that sort of might go a long way, because it would sort of give the businesses some publicity for doing the right thing. And maybe it's something they didn't have to be told to do. It could be something as simple as, like, look at the amount of space in this hallway that this particular establishment has, or, look at these push buttons, look at these doorways. I mean, and then I think that, those businesses would be glad to have that kind of publicity for that good reason. And at the same time, we're also sort of nudging other businesses to kind of look at their own establishment and make similar changes.
Yeah, I added those points in, Rochelle. Thanks. I agree with that piece. And just so you guys know, as I kind of like lean over, I just have my second screen here as I'm typing. So I've been listening the entire time, but I do like that point as well. And it does connect nicely with the other piece that was mentioned earlier about businesses. So yeah, both good ideas.
Can I touch base on that?
Good. Yeah, go ahead, John.
We looked at that a couple of years ago and never really got off the ground. So this is probably about 10, 12 years ago, or even longer. Hell, I don't know how long I've been with the group, but one thing that we can do, though, is create a self-auditing process, which businesses can grade themselves, give themselves a bronze, silver, or gold standard. And we can support that. Go in, do a little check, make sure that they're self-auditing themselves and coming up with a proper grade. So that could be something we can send out as a package to the Chamber of Commerce. They can make it available to their members as well.
I was just writing that in. I like that. And I don't know if we have talked about that in the past, but I do like the idea of like a package, right? Like Haley's been focusing a lot on actually going in there and meeting with them in person. But I think having that option on our accessibility page as well as kind of like a self-auditing tool would be nice for people to see. Here are like the basics that you can be doing. How well are you doing it? Give yourself a grade. And then what you mentioned there, John, where we kind of come back afterwards, be like, okay, let's assess what you graded yourself at. Do we agree with it? Right? Because
No.
I think everyone's gonna be like, yeah, we're an A or an A plus, and so we need to just make sure that that's actually the case. So I think that's a good idea. And I think that would be really good if we had that business video awareness campaign come out with that tool as well. I think that would be a very good combination that we can do. So those are all fantastic ideas.
On that note, Matt, I'm also just sending you all the stuff that I had put together for the restaurants and for offices.
Yep.
That I had from standards that I had sent to
Perfect.
How to send it to you. I'm sending it to you now.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Do we actually have a week set aside at any time for accessibility, to celebrate accessibility?
Oh, yeah. So we have two, Joanne. So Max was working on this last year. So usually it varies year to year, but May or June, we have National Accessibility Week, and then we celebrate in December for International Disabilities Day as well. So we do both of those. And so the last couple of years, we've been doing everything virtual. So we kind of usually offer some kind of different seminar that's ongoing and stuff because of COVID. But hopefully, as we start to transition out of this, maybe it won't happen this year because we're just starting to kind of get out of it. But hopefully come 2023, we can go back to what we used to do. So we used to do things in person where we would allow all the community organizations to come into our facilities, set up their booths and stuff, and present to any of the people that are walking through our facilities what they do, who they work with, and what their involvement is in the community. So that's what we were doing prior to COVID, but obviously COVID kind of brought an end to that. So yeah, we will be celebrating National Accessibility Week in the coming months. We're just around the corner from there.
Have we ever thought of having a concert and putting the people with accessibility issues forward? Like 2 girls in our choir are both challenged, and they've got the most incredible voices you ever want to hear. We've got other people that will play an instrument, and there's different things like that, and I just don't know. The Good Brothers have often performed with us, and they're really they have a friend that's challenged, and they're just so a part of our choir, and over the years it's been wonderful. And we phone them, they just, drop everything and come. And so, I mean, we could set up a good concert as part of that week too, and I don't mind doing that type of thing.
So I think prior to COVID, we did attempt to do something like that. I see Haley nodding her head because I remember we were talking about having people come in. We had a couple of issues, one with the acoustics of the facilities. And then second, it's actually the difficult part really is whether we think it's worth their time to come in and try to showcase their talent, because we don't have an enormous amount of people coming in, right? Like usually any of the people that are walking through for National Accessibility Week, we usually have a couple of hours that it's open. And it's usually people that are walking through the facility. So like they'll walk by to like their program, they'll take a look at things. We don't really have like a huge amount of people coming into the event space. But I think there's an opportunity for us to kind of create an opportunity to showcase some of our talent and choir individuals that would like to kind of do that stuff at some of our special events. Like that might be something that we kind of look into that, where you really do have that audience, because you don't want to have people come in and then no one's actually there to kind of listen to them, right? So that was a part of the issue.
We've got a theater in town.
Yeah, and so that would lead to that's what I'm saying. That would be an event versus going into National Accessibility Week, right? So that's something we could look into.
But the thing is, it could be a National Accessibility Week. You could put it in there and have a concert, or you could even make it two evenings, or an evening and a matinee. And so that, whatever to do it, whichever way you want to do it. But if it was advertised properly, you could either show it out as an event and not have a charge, or you could have drops of that stuff for the food bank, or you could also have a minimal charge and then turn the money over to accessibility issues.
I think so we will be talking about this in the next couple of months. We'll kind of put that on hold until we do have this conversation in the next 2 months. I will be cautious around that. I'm not against it. I love the idea. I just, based on experience, I've been working at the town through various departments for a long time, it's very hard, even as much as you advertise, if people are not really fully invested into coming into something like that, you don't get a huge showing. And so I'm just saying this out of all due respect to the individuals that would be doing the performance. We want to make sure that their time is used well, right? So I'm not saying no, but we can explore that a little bit closer too when we're looking at ideas for National Accessibility Week.
That's why I'm saying if it's something like the Good Brothers or something like that, they're very, very big at drawing people in.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's why I'm suggesting them. Yeah.
Yep. So we'll look into it.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanne. So that was a fantastic amount of ideas that came through. So thank you guys. I wrote them all down. With the only input I'll add in, because I think your ideas were better than some of the ones I had, so I'm not even going to add them in. But I do think for the challenges that Haley brought up at the very beginning, I think one way that we can do a good job of correlating it to the accessibility plan is kind of building the challenge around each of the 5 standards of the AODA, right? So something that's involved around design of public spaces. So I know that's what we always kind of jump into. It's like, look how difficult it is to get into this building or this area, but also showcasing the other areas that aren't talked about so regularly. Talking about transportation, what it means to have an accessible cab, showing people the uses of an accessible cab. Everyone sees one on the highway, but I don't think they know like the functionality and what it does. Looking at the information communication standard, showing them on the showing them the website, where the features are, that kind of stuff. So I think that'll be an opportunity as well, as if we go down that road with the challenges, is connecting them to each of the 5 standards. So what I was going to mention as well, with the short amount of time that we have left. Election season is right around the corner. So there's going to be people putting their names and their ballots up in the next couple of months. So I think we will stay clear of getting council members too involved in this next video while we are still in term with the Accessibility Advisory Committee for that reason. So I think the idea that Haley had with looking at what is a disability, growing on this last video that we had, or taking a look at the conversation that we were just having about businesses, would be the most viable 2 options to do right now in the next couple of months before you guys end your term in June. And then obviously we will pick it up again once the committee starts back up after the election year. So what are your thoughts on that? Do we want to stick to maybe those 2 themes for the next video in the next couple of months? I think those would be the easiest to do, and it will be the least restrictive considering the political climate that we're about to enter into with the election.
Sounds good.
Is there a preference? Is there a preference which way we go? What do you guys think?
You mean which one we do first? Is that what you're saying? Which one we do first?
Yeah. Which one would we want to do first?
Well, I just think what is a disability is a little more applicable to everyone, because not everyone is a business owner. Also, I think if we want to give the business, it could get a little political, because I know the town has a lot of business politics.
Gotta avoid those lobbyists, right? Yeah. So we do have one vote for what is a disability. I think it does kind of transition nicely from where we started. So we have one. I want to hear from the whole committee. So that's Max's vote. What does everyone else think?
I was going to say, I think the same to do what is a disability next, because I also think it flows from what is accessibility, but I think it's also important because then we can refer back to businesses when we're trying to inform them about these things, that they have this general idea first versus doing these business videos and then having to explain to them what is a disability in the first place.
Yep. Great. So we've got
I completely agree with Haley and Max. I think that doing the video on what is a disability is a better foundational piece to sort of then launch the business sort of initiative. And I think that doing them the other way around would be kind of backwards. Not to mention the fact that I think that having the two videos, I think, sort of go nicely together, right? And I think that it's sort of it's like a packaged piece to have the two together back to back. So I feel like it's sort of like a sequel, right? Stay tuned for the next video. So I feel like it's a good idea to move into that first. And yeah, I completely agree with Haley that it'll give us something to use as sort of a reference tool when we are sort of engaging with the businesses.
Also, Matt, it gives us more time if we're going to do that kind of gold standard thing. It gives us time to develop that versus if we create those videos and you want to launch them together, we're creating a tighter timeline.
Yeah, and if we go down this road, which half the votes are there already, so we'll see if that changes. We can start working on that checklist idea that John was mentioning as well, with kind of creating those standards and stuff. And Haley, I know you said you're sending that stuff over as well. We can start working on that now, so we have that prepared well in advance of getting to that point, and we have that as an introductory piece. So, okay, so we have half the committee on what is a disability. I'll make it easy. Does anyone oppose us going down that road rather than going through it individually?
No, but I just had a suggestion. I was watching the Paralympics today, and they were talking to a couple of the individuals about what had happened to them and what they had accomplished from this and everything. And at the moment, they're on a real high, and it was going to say if you're going to do some sort of video, it might be something that you could add in a couple of the people from the Canadian team, because in some instances with people, they feel that if there is a disability, they're not capable of doing things. And these people, especially, since you hear some of what they have had happen to them, and accidents and all sorts of things, they really come across with the things that they've done, and it's extreme, but for the individuals normally. But the thing is that it would be something maybe you could add to it, and they would, of course, dearly love to have the publicity themselves.
Yeah, so now what I'll ask is, so previously what Haley and I did was her and I met with Lisa to kind of go over how we want to see this video look. So Joanne gave her input there. Is anyone else interested? So I know Haley will probably sit down with me and go through this process again. I know we asked last time, does anyone else want to be involved as we schedule these to kind of provide their input and kind of see what they want this video to look like as we start developing it? Everyone is welcome. I will add you guys if you raise your hands and your voices to be involved. So let me know.
Joanne will.
Okay, thank you, Joanne.
I would love to. Please tell me when you meeting. I'll try my best to fit them in because I'm going into exam season.
Max, stop it. We know you're not studying for school. Okay, I already added you to the list, so you'll be there. I will reach out to everybody in advance and give a couple of dates as an option, and then we will find something that works for everyone's schedule. And I'm joking, Max. I know school's priority, right? So we will find something that works for everybody. So I've got Haley, Joanne, and Max. Anyone else want to be involved in this? It's completely voluntary, so you guys let me know. Okay, cool. So I'll email all of you regardless. I'll let you know what dates we're looking at. And then if you have time to be involved, we obviously want your input to be in there as well. So everyone is welcome. So I will keep you guys up to date. We'll start working on that in, what is it now? March 9th. Okay. Probably start working on it in April in all reality. So we'll be in touch very soon. But that was the last item on the accessibility plan. So I will pass it back over to our chair, unless someone else has something to add in, but I think we're pretty close to closing up here. So Rochelle, it's back over to you.
Okay. All right. If there are no further comments on the roundtable discussion, I will call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that carries. And we have no informational items this evening, so that brings us finally to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Matthew.
I heard Matthew and Haley. I will use you as a second then. That's great. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that carries. And that is us done for this evening.
Thank you very